So thank you for your attention. I'll let Gina give introductory remarks, and again, we appreciate you being here.
Thanks. Thank you, Kari. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. And the first thing I want to say is that the one thing Kari didn't say was who she was. So I am going to introduce her. She's going to be a panel member. I would normally do it then, but I'm going to do it now because Kari is one of the reasons why we're here today. Now, I will tell you this may not seem unusual to you, but this is a partnership between Harvard and Stanford. That's unusual. We are breaking barriers here. But Kari is both an MD and a PhD. She's the director of the Sean N. Parker Center for Allergy and Asthma Research at Stanford. She's section chief of allergy and asthma at the Stanford School of Medicine, total underachiever, and an endowed professor under the Natasie Family Foundation. She focuses on global climate change, air pollution, and she worries and desperately works to fight increases in allergy and asthma in our kids and mitigating those risks wherever she can. And so Kari has been one of the main drivers, along with Ari, who I'll recognize in a few minutes, as getting this together and getting our attention focused on why kids are the most important thing when we talk about climate change. They are the reason that climate change is personal to each and every one of us, and not just about the planet's health, because the planet doesn't care if it's warming or not. We care if it's warming, because it's about our kids' health, and it's about their very future. And that's why we're here together. That's what brought Harvard and Stanford together. It had to be a big thing, and we got one. So it's great to be here and to have all of you here to talk about this intersect, and with me, to learn what the science has to say. But I do want to tell you that I start out by thanking, frankly, the students at the Harvard School of Public Health, because it's them that brought me through the transition from working for President Obama as the EPA administrator to getting through that time when we saw that the federal government wasn't going to be interested in pursuing the continued mission of EPA. And it brought me over the hump to realize that that's Washington. I need to live in the real world. And that the real world, these things are important. In the real world, we're going to work to protect our kids from pollution. In the real world, we know that climate change isn't about climate. It really is about pollution. It is carbon pollution. We have given climate change too much credit for being something so big that we can't tackle it, and that's wrong. It is not big, it's pollution. We've been dealing with this stuff for decades. We've been hugely successful in talking about science, in following the science, in translating that science into direct impacts that pollution has on our kids and on our families, and using that to personalize this issue, to motivate change, to make change happen. We don't need to rely on the federal government. We have the wherewithal to keep things moving forward, and that is what this conference is about. I can't change what this administration is doing, but I can tell you that whatever they're doing a lousy job at it, and it's not going to roll back anything we did. So I am really focused on trying to not worry about Washington as much as I worry about kids, because we can work together and we can make change happen. We can tell people the meaningful opportunity we have, not just the fear that we have if we don't address climate change, because it is an opportunity, because pollution isn't an equal opportunity killer. It actually focuses on our children and our elderly, because they're the ones that are most susceptible to the impacts of pollution. It focuses on low-income and minority communities. We have left people behind, and our goal now isn't just to correct the issues of climate change and to address them. It's to make sure that front and center is the equity issue. is the challenge of how we focus on the communities that have been left behind, bring them into the fold in the design of solutions, and make sure that any solution that we offer to climate change addresses the inequities in the system today that are holding communities down and keeping them in poverty. And pollution is a big part of that equation, whether it's conventional pollutants or whether it is climate change and carbon pollution. Look, I know that we're in the early days of the climate change movement, and I've appreciated it very much. Our main goal was to focus on the overall challenge of climate change, and I get that. We wanted to scare the heck out of people so they paid attention. Now, I believe, and I firmly believe this, that people are paying attention to this. They see that the climate is changing. They're not arguing about that. But what they need us to do is solve this, to talk about solutions. And what we need to do is to make the tent of climate action as big and as broad and as inclusive and as diverse as we possibly can get it. Because climate change isn't an elitist issue. It is, in fact, an issue that has huge implications for our children, for our elderly, for our low income, and our minority communities. Look, 9 million people every year die prematurely because of impacts related to environmental exposures, related to pollution. At least 7 million, and I just saw a new study come out that actually was supported by some of the great people at EPA. It didn't come out of EPA, but out of at EPA, that says that that number could be more than 9 million people die every year. Guess where the vast majority, 92 to 93% of where that pollution is impacting the most? It's low income and it's middle income countries. So we have to do better than this. EPA, when they step aside because of this administration, still know because they're filled with scientists and have to know because they're filled with scientists that this is really the real issue. This is what we have to focus on. Our scientists and our science needs our support today. It's under attack. We have to step up. We have to make the change that we want to see. We have to not scare people, but motivate them and let them know that a low carbon future is actually a brighter one, it's a healthier one, it's a cleaner one, and it's a more just one. That is what our goal is. That's what the center at Harvard that I now direct is all about. It's the Center for Health and the Global Environment. Oh, sorry, that's wrong. It's the Center for Climate, Health, and the Global Environment. It's a new center, yeah, but I'm an old person, so that it's a factor of both of those things. So we really need to get together. We really need to make climate change personal. We really need to drive solutions that benefit the communities that have most been left behind. And I am confident that if we work together, we do not need a federal government to lead this effort. We can actually do this work ourselves, and we can work across the globe to make this happen. Look, I had my first grandson, my first grandchild, happened to be a son. He was born just 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks and 2 days ago. Thank you. I had nothing to do with it, other than produce my son, but that was good. But I just want to bring that up because if you're wondering what the face of climate change is, it isn't a polar bear. It's my grandson. If you want to borrow him as your face, you can, but I suggest you make it personal to yourself. Because really, when 2050 comes, this big year we always thought was so far away, he's going to be 32 years old. If you think that I'm not going to work till my dying breath to make sure that when he's 32, he has a community that he can live in, he has a more just community than we've seen before, that it's not a community that respects health and provides an opportunity for everybody to have a right to clean air and a right to clean water, and we deliver on that right. That's what we're here to talk about. So you are going to hear today from some wonderful panelists, and I want to introduce the first few, which are three. which will enter into a dynamic, I think, conversation about what we see and why we mean that children's health is the front line of climate change. That if all we come out of here is to talk about CO2 pollution, then we're just going to be talking to ourselves. What we want to talk about is ways of addressing pollution that is impacting our kids, impacting our elderly, and holding people down in poverty. And when we alleviate that pollution, we can raise communities up and make this the kind of tent that is broad enough and deep enough that we can address this problem. That's what today is all about. So Kari, come on down. The price is right.